Yeah, it's 4 o'clock. Good evening, everybody. My name is Hussein Mahadi, and I'll be our moderator for today's program. As we all know, our topic for today is the state of the fossil fuel industry. We'll be having our mentors join us to mentor us on it, and also the presenters will also make their presentation for Group 1 and Group 2. Good evening once again, everybody. I hope you're having a good day from wherever you are. Kindly edit your Zoom name. For those that haven't done that, you can edit your Zoom name. And please, you're advised to put your videos on at all times. Thank you very much. So I'll start by introducing the program. Gypsy Mentorship and Internship Program is a quarterly program for students and young professionals across Africa. Mentees are afforded the opportunity to access valuable advice on the energy industry, training network, mentorship, internship, discussion forums, industry updates, resource materials from experienced mentors. This program seeks to encourage continuous training, development, and evolution in Nigeria, Africa, and around the world. You can search for Gypsy on your social media platform, hashtag GypsyMIP on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram and LinkedIn. So the objectives of the program is to provide easy access, guidance, training, and resource material for students and young professionals, to facilitate dialogue and network among experienced and less experienced practitioners and stakeholders, to transform mentees into mentors and leaders for the next generation, and to facilitate further mentorship and internship program, scholarship, job placements for the mentees. So I'll be giving us some announcements for today. First announcement is the registration for the first quarter of 2023 Gypsy Mentorship and Internship Program. Registration is currently ongoing. You can share the flyer on your screen with your friends and anybody who is interested in any of the areas we offer. And we are having a Gypsy get-together party is being organized by the end of the year. It's 10th of December for those residing in Abuja. And also we have 2 locations for the Gypsy party. So the other location is in Lagos, which is on the 17th of December. So those in Lagos, you are also advised to participate. And those in Abuja, you can also participate. And the final announcement is the Gypsy 30 minutes one-on-one mentorship program. So if you meet with any mentors in the course of the program and you want to have a 30-minute one-on-one session with the mentor, you can register through the link bit.ly/gypsypm and have a 30-minute private session with the mentor. Finally, all groups are advised to start working on your week 8 project, which is the awareness project, please. Once you are done with your weekly tasks, you can just meet as a group again and work on that. Thank you very much. Today we'll be having Mr. Okochukwu Kelly Agbo as our first mentor. Mr. Okochukwu Kelly Agboje has over 15 years work experience in the oil and gas industry across the upstream, refining gas, and the power value China.A. That's our first mentor. Kindly join me in welcoming our first mentor to the program today. Our second mentor is Mr. Etulan Adu. Etulan Adu, MSc, MNSC, Oil and Gas Industry Expert, Executive, MBA candidate, Quantic School of Business and Technology, USA, MSc in Petroleum Technology from Teesside University, UK, Bachelor in Engineering and Gas Production Operation, Energy Industry Expert and Global Voice on the International Energy Geopolitics, worked with major IOCs in Nigeria. That's our second mentor for today. And our third mentor is Mrs. Nena Eze. Mrs. Nena Eze is an energy and commercial law with diverse experience across the oil and gas value chain. She is the commercial manager, JV operations for First Hydrocarbon Nigerian Company Limited and drives the commercial functions for the development and production of the hydrocarbon resource in OML 26 onshore Niger Delta. Prior to this, she served as legal manager on FHN, deputy legal manager on the NPDC FHN joint venture asset management team, and senior counsel at Denton ACS Law, a first-tier law firm, where she serviced investors, operators, and industry stakeholders. Nena earned a Master's of Law degree from the University of Lagos, an LLB from the University of Nigeria, and professional certification in management and negotiations from the Yale School of Management and Harvard Law School. She is a member of reputable professional associations, including the Society of Petroleum Engineers, SPA, Association of International Petroleum Negotiators, International Bar Association, Nigerian Bar Association, and Employment and Labor Lawyers Association of Nigeria. Join me in welcoming Mrs. Nena Eze to the session today. So I'll call on the first group, which is Group 1. The presenter for Group 1 will be giving us her presentation and also sharing the screen. So Group 1, please, if the presenter is ready, you can unmute yourself, share your screen, and start your presentation. Please, if you haven't changed your name session, if you haven't edited your name session on your Zoom, please kindly do that immediately. You can edit it to your name so that we can recognize you for attendance purposes. Thank you very much. Group 1, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please, can everyone see the screen?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chima Somtochiko, and I am a member of Group 1, and I am the one to give our presentation today. The topic we're assigned is the fossil fuel industry, petroleum industry, and coal industry. Before I go into the topic, I feel we should all know what fossil fuel is. So, according to Wikipedia, a fossil fuel is a hydrocarbon containing material formed naturally in the earth crust from the remains of dead plants and animals that is extracted and burned as a fuel. The origin of fossil fuel is the anaerobic decomposition of very dead organisms containing organic molecules created by photosynthesis. We have different types of fossil fuels, and they are such as coal, petroleum, crude oil, asphalt, bitumen, natural gas, etc. Fossil fuel is a non-renewable energy that contributes to the largest source of electricity generation, basically contributes as much as 80% to the energy generation in the world. It is also known as the major source of income or revenue in some parts of the countries in the world. In non-renewable energy resources are natural resources that cannot be readily replaced by natural means at a quick pace that could meet up with consumption. Now, the question is, are there environmental consequences of the consumption of fossil fuels? According to the United States Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, the burning of fossil fuels causes community health risk, pollution, and global warming. The impact of fossil fuels I tried to make it to be brief because of the time that I was given. So I broke down into 3 types, that is air pollution, water pollution, and global warming. The burning of fossil fuels, particularly coal, can release harmful chemicals like sulfur dioxide and carbon monoxide into the air. And this results to severe asthma, skin melanoma, lung cancer, and this has been noticed constantly in areas where there have been constant mining and drilling of these fossil fuels. The next one is water pollution. The sulfur dioxide released from untreated coal can mix with other elements and can produce acid rain. Also, oil spillage into water bodies can destroy the marine ecosystem, thereby leading to the extinction of fishes and other aquatic animals. And the third, but not the least, is global warming. Methane and carbon dioxide emissions stemming from electricity plants, cement manufacturing, burning vehicles, and other industrial plants emit heat that depletes the earth crust, and it thereby leads to a surge in global temperatures as we have been experiencing in the recent decades. According to Section 44 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the federal government has the autonomy over all mineral resources and natural resources that are found in the country, regardless of whichever region it has been found in. I'll move over to what our topic is. I would start with the petroleum industry. What is petroleum? Petroleum is a naturally occurring liquid found in rock formation after being subjected to heat and pressure from earth crust. It contains mainly hydrogen and other organic compounds. We have different process or sectors of the petroleum industry, and there are just three sectors of the petroleum industry. And the first one is the upstream industry, the second one is the mainstream industry, and the third one is the downstream industry. The upstream industry is the first stage, and it comprises of geological surveys, mining and drilling, and manufacturing. The second stage is the midstream stage. That is the stage where we talk about storage and transportation of such fossil fuels. And the last stage, which is also important as the first and the second stage, is the stage that comprises of the distribution of such fossil fuels and retail outlets. In order to maintain effective use of fossil fuels and to protect the environment, and to also make sure that the needs and wants of human beings in a given environment or geographical locations are met, there have been several bodies that have been set up to regulate the use, the production, the mining, the drilling of such petroleum. And this is what we know as the regulators of petroleum industry. Yes, so we have several regulators of the petroleum industry. The first one, which is very important, is the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. The next one is the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Act. We also have the Environmental Impact Assessment Act. We have the Federal Inland Revenues Establishment Act 2007. We have the Education Tax Act. We have the Nigerian Delta Development Commission Establishment Act. We have the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative Act 2007. We have the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industry Development Act 2010. There is also the Nigerian Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency Establishment Act. And last but not the least is the Petroleum Industry Act of 2021, which was just accepted, which was just passed into bill as of last year. So I would take them one by one. The CFRN 1999 as amended. Basically, the important thing that we take from the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is that Section 44.3 of the Constitution states or gives power and ownership and control of any oil found in anywhere in Nigeria to the federal government. And it doesn't matter any region so far as it is within the territorial contingencies of Nigeria. Federal government has power and ownership and control over it. I would move on to the NNPC Act. The NNPC Act establishes the NNPC and it empowers the NNPC to act in petroleum organizations on behalf of the federal government. The third one is the FIRS Establishment Act 2007. This establishes statutory powers on the FIRS to collect all taxes, dues, fees, penalties from oil licenses, mining, depot fees, gas flaring, etc. The fourth one is the Aia Act. It provides the framework for assessing the impact of oil and gas projects on the environment. This act basically it's there to try to make sure, in as much as we are trying to mine and drill lots of oil, we are also trying to make sure that the environment is able and capable of handling such pressures that this fossil fuels can add to the environment. The fifth one is the Education Tax Act. This provides that it basically states that the oil and gas companies have to pay an annual 2% of their accessible profits to the federal government to help to develop the educational sector of the country. The NDDC Establishment Act mandates payments, mandates commission payments from the oil and gas companies of 3% of their annual budget to the development of the Niger Delta areas where oil and gas are exploited. This act is basically trying to make sure that in as much as oils and crude oils and other mineral resources are being gotten from the Niger Delta, the people who live in such areas can also have a good standard of living. They won't be able to suffer because they are living in a place where oils are drilled and mined constantly. The seventh one is the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industry Context Development Act 2010. This basically is as a framework to promote the participation of Nigerians in the oil and gas industry. And it lays down minimum threshold to make sure that companies who are not as big as other companies can be able to participate and also be able to meet up with the guidelines for such organizations. The eighth one is the Nigerian Extractor Industries Transparency Initiative Act 2007. It provides the framework for the transparency and accountability of oil and gas companies. It basically states that they should be able to be transparent in all their reports are given as to where they mine their oils, the transportation, whether the oils are good and they are produced properly in order to protect the environment. The ninth one is the Nigerian Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency Establishment Act. This establishes the NOSDRA, which coordinates and implements the Nigerian Oil Spill Contingency Plan. That is the NOS for Nigeria. And the 10th one, which is, I wouldn't say it's the 10th one, which is the Petroleum Industry Act 2021. It was enacted to provide for the legal governance, the regulatory and the fiscal framework for the Nigerian petroleum industry, the establishment and development of host communities and other related matters in the upstream, midstream, and downstream sectors of the petroleum industry. The Act is categorized into 5 chapters, 319 sections, and 8 schedules. Chapter 1 of the Act provides for the governance and institution of the petroleum industry. It lays emphasis on the fact that the ownership and control of petroleum within Nigeria and its territorial waters are vested in the government of the Federation of Nigeria. The Minister of Petroleum has the powers as vested on him by Section 3, subsection 1 to formulate, monitor, and administer government policies in the petroleum industry, amongst other functions. I will move on to the key innovations of the Petroleum Industry Act. The first innovation of the Petroleum Industry Act is that it establishes dual regulators for the petroleum industry. And the first one is the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, which is also known as the Commission. It is a body corporate with perpetual associations whose functions are limited only to the upstream petroleum activities as provided for in Section 4 of the Act. It states that the Commission is responsible for the technical and commercial regulation of the upstream petroleum operations. Amongst other functions of the Commission is that it is established to ensure compliance with all applicable laws and regulations governing the upstream petroleum operations.
Sorry to
The
interrupt,
second,
Chima. You have 2
yes,
more minutes for your
okay.
presentation.
Okay, so I'm almost done. The second regulators is the second. I was talking about the dual regulators. So the second regulator is the one that was provided for under Section 29 of the Act, which is the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Industry Petroleum Authority. Sorry, this is also known as the authority. This regulatory authority is responsible for the technical and commercial regulation of the midstream and downstream petroleum operations in the petroleum company as provided in Section 29, subsection 3 of the Act. And another important innovation of the Petroleum Industry Act is that the Petroleum Industry Act, it establishes the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, that is the NNPC Limited, under Section 53 of the Act. I would now try to explain the coal industry. Coal is a combustible sedimentary rock that is formed when heat and pressure converts decayed plant matter into heat. The main component is carbon, and others include hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and sulfur. Coal is mainly used as fuel, but was unpopular until the invention of steam engine during the Industrial Revolution of the steam engine. Coal is responsible for about 25% of the emission of greenhouse gas globally. Hence, the call for a reduction or outright stoppage for the use in conformity with energy transition. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that the use of coal needs to be stopped because it causes more damage to the environment than the benefits which it provides to human consumption. We have two types of coal, and that is the metallurgical coal and the thermal coal. The metallurgical coal price is more volatile because it has sulfur content, and its sulfur content is lower, and it can be easily refined. China is the leader of mining and consumption of coal, and basically China controls the economic market for the sale of coal and the transportation of coal. The Nigerian Coal Corporation, that is the NCCC, which is based in Enugu, is a Nigerian parastatal corporation responsible for mining and selling of coal. Coal was first discovered in 1909 in Enugu State, and 6 years after, the Obete mine was built to help in the production and mining of coal.
Sorry to interrupt, Chima. Your time is up, so please conclude.
Yes, so that's what I was about to do. In conclusion, the Nigerian oil and gas sector has experienced an evolution since the first time of exploitation to moment of the exploration of large commercial quantity. Hence, a constant is that it has been the soul of Nigerian's economy. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Chima, for that detailed presentation. It was informative and educative. So we'll call the second presenter for Group 2 to share your screen and start your presentation immediately. Group 2 presenter, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I'm just trying to share my screen. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm trying to share my screen. I'm a bit confused on how I can do it. Maybe, are you able to assist me on how I can share my screen?
Is there a backup presenter who can help you share your screen?
Anyway, let's do this.
Okay, so anyone in the group can help to share the screen. Thank you.
But is it possible for me to start without sharing the screen?
Yes, you can start without sharing the screen, yes.
Okay. My name is Muchimba Mumba from Zambia. I'm representing the topic for Group 2 on fossil fuels, specifically the natural gas. So initially, most of these are the same as what the first presenter shared because they're taken from the same place, which is the dead component of animals and plants, which is found in the earth. So however, when it comes to natural gas, it's comprised mostly of methane, which is a hydrocarbon, and it's usually found in rocks, especially, and below the earth. It's gotten through fracking, which is a process that is done to blast the rocks and source out the methane gas. So it's usually pumped and it can easily be compressed and transported easily through pumps. It can be transported through trucks. Yeah. So when the fracking process is done, it's turned into energy, which is it's a main source of energy because it's used in heating, in cooking sometimes, and used in chemicals like fertilizers and other chemicals that can be used. So the advantages of this natural gas is the fact that, first of all, it's the cleanest it's the cleanest gas that can be used when it comes to the fossil industry. So it is mainly used because of its cleanliness and it's easier to source. Then another advantage of it is that it is cheaper, though expensive when sourcing. It is cheaper to source out and turn into energy. And there's a lot of vast, it's easier to get because it's vast. You can find rocks anywhere, you can find the earth anywhere. So that's its biggest advantage. And most of it is the fact that it is clean. However, even though it is clean, it has many of its disadvantages. Firstly, it is non-renewable. So you don't find it often. So once you use it, you cannot replace it. That's the biggest concern when it comes to the disadvantages of this gas. The second disadvantage is that you need to use a lot of the earth. So you're finishing most of the composition, which leads to a lot of global warming. And when we get to global warming, it goes to the same thing, which leads to the next disadvantage of it being a pollutant. It usually pollutes the air, it usually pollutes the water, and causing a lot of diseases like cancer and all these things. It's very common in China. That's one of the concerns. I'm not going to concentrate a lot on Nigeria because I'm not from there. So my presentation was very general, as in Africa and internationally as well. And when we look at the disadvantages in China and these other countries, you find that those that do the most of natural gas have a lot of disabilities because of the same. The other disadvantage is that it is very flammable. It is highly flammable, which can cause explosions during transportation. It can cause explosion even during the process of making it, because once it escapes during that process, it causes a lot of damage. And usually because of the advantage of the process, during the process of fracking, you are breaking down rocks, which can lead to the earth moving. It leads to earthquakes, for example. I'm sure we all know countrywide that there are a lot of earthquakes in other countries. Some of these are caused during the process of getting this methane, which is our main source of natural gas. So it includes drilling. It's usually gotten through drilling. So you need to go down to the earth, and that's one of the disadvantages because of the pollution. Also, it pollutes water. So the wastewater that we get is polluted, which is also a very big disadvantage, and we cannot replace it. So it's the biggest disadvantage to say, once it finishes, what are the other options that you have to get this methane gas? And yeah, I think I have talked about the advantages. I've talked about the disadvantages. I've talked about the source of it. I've talked about the process of getting this gas to us. I've talked about the uses of this gas, and I think that will be all, because I'm aware it's 8 minutes for the presentation.
Thank you very much, Chimba Mumba.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. So that was the presentations for group 2. So we'll call the first mentor for her contribution and comments on both presentation, and also give us some take home on our topic for today, which is the state of fossil fuel industry. Our first mentor for today will be Miss Nena Easy. Please kindly unmute yourself and start talking.
Hi,
Thank you very much.
Hussein.
Yes,
Good evening.
good evening, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. Thank you to our presenters. I will try to put on my camera right now. A little tired from a long day. Thank you to Ima Somtochukwu Ochimba Mumba for your presentation. Hussein, you actually introduced me last, so I was hoping that would be the last mentor to speak. I wasn't expecting to be the first at all. I was willing for the gentleman to have the floor first. But I'm happy to go first. I want to thank our presenters for the presentation, and also appreciate everyone that contributed to writing these presentations. I will just go through the names quickly. I'm aware that group 1, you had Chima making the presentation, Somtochukwu, and other contributors to that paper include Olu David Oluwa, Elojo Ata Onoja, Bekeremo Genetega Kendrick, Chima, I have already mentioned. Victoria, your surname is not here, but we appreciate you. Idoko Joseph Ame, and Evangeline Olade. Thank you for working on this paper titled Fossil Fuels Industry, the Petroleum Industry, and the Coal Industry. We also appreciate everyone that worked on the second paper that was just presented by Muchimba Mumba, and the group members for group two include Indigwe Ifeanyi, Sochimba Obasi, Muchimba I've already mentioned, Weke Favor, Ifesinachi, Azomta, your surname is not mentioned, but we appreciate you, and Victoria Oswago. I hope that this is not the same Victoria from group 1 for versatility. So I just thought to read out the names of the group members. Sometimes the people in the background that help to make the magic happen. It's also good to acknowledge their efforts. And the presenters, thank you for the well put together presentation and for managing the time. I took some notes in the course of your presentation. Chima, I want us to have this more like a conversation. I mean, life is not that serious sometimes. So I can see some of us are not smiling in the background. I'm still at work and we'll get back to work after this. So I just want us to have fun in the course of this conversation. First, I want to thank you for the invitation. I thank Juliana and all members of the, please, could you pronounce it again? I was just pronouncing by the initials.
Gypsy Mentorship and Internship Program.
Okay, Gypsy. Very, very nice way you've put the name. Thank you so much for the invite. I just got this a few days ago, and I'm happy that I was able to make it. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone that has made today's presentation happen. So, Chima, if I may ask, what was the message you were trying to put out for us in your presentation? What was the ultimate message you wanted your listeners to go home with? It's an interactive session, yeah.
Good evening, Ma. So the message I was trying to pass along is that despite the fact that fossil fuels, particularly petroleum and coal, have contributed immensely to the economical development of countries at large, it has also contributed to different environmental issues such as pollution, and has also contributed to diseases that up to now cures haven't been found for it. So I'm just trying to say that in as much as we claim that this has contributed well, it has still not, it's the contribution it has contributed to the economy doesn't still meet up with the damages it has inflicted upon humans at large.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let me tell you some of the great things I like from your presentation. I like the highlighted the environmental consequences of for us. Also classify the petroleum industry in terms of the three big sectors in the industry as per the upstream, midstream, and downstream sector. You also talk about the regulators of the petroleum industry. You headed as regulators, but you were more talking about the legal and regulatory regime, in terms of the laws and the regulations. So you did a very good job in breaking that down. You came up with some of the key innovations in the PIA, which I think is stellar for you to have done as someone who is not yet in depth in the industry, to have been able to read the PIA. And when I say you, I mean you and your team, all members of Group 1, for you to have been able to study the PIA and pick out the major in the law. That was highly commendable. So thank you very much for that. Just some feedback on some things I think you should bear in mind in subsequent presentations and preparation of future papers. So you highlighted, when I asked you the question, what was the message you wanted your listeners to go home with? If you listen to the response you gave us and compare it with the title of your topic, you see that there was some kind of divergence. So I would advise that in the future, remember your take-home message in crafting your topic, so that whoever is looking at your topic at a first glance will be able to have an idea of what they should be expecting to hear from you. Secondly, I think you did a very good job in giving us all this information, and at the end of the day, we didn't get so much of the meat of what you wanted us to learn, So you spent some time in describing what fossil fuel was. You spent some time on the laws. Now, even if you were talking about the laws in relation to the environmental aspect of the laws and the key components of those environmental laws that could be used to combat some of the environmental issues and challenges we're experiencing in the industry, I think that would have been much helpful. But you were just speaking to all the laws without really diving deep into how those laws relate to the message you wanted us to go home with. You said you also wanted the use of coal to be stopped. Said it was primarily because coal contributes to environmental pollution. Hussein, how much time do I have for this feedback so I don't take all the time?
You have 10 minutes.
Okay, all right, I'll make it short. So you highlighted that coal is an environmental friendly fuel. It would have been good to get more information as to that. Is it because it's dirty? You mentioned the hydrogen component is actually the carbon component of fossil fuel that makes it to be environmentally unfriendly, so fossil fuels have very high carbon components that do not degrade easily and could also impact. You hear now, which is more environmentally friendly, and a lot of renewable sources. For example, if you're speaking to using hydro, water, except that you need to be able to manage the quantum of water on the earth as well. You see that it's a little more cleaner than when you speak to the hydrocarbons. So those are my feedback for you. Great presentation, great topic, rich content. Going forward, I think you should bear in mind the message you want to pass on to your listeners, craft that into your topic, and bear that in mind while making your presentation so that you don't spend much time writing the preambles and not getting into the meat of the message you want us to take home, okay? The feedback for the second speaker, Muchimba. Thank you. Presentation. I'm happy with presented topic. Your topic was fossil fuel, natural gas. Natural gas industries, like you have an industry inside an industry, like a sector. The fact that you explain the process for natural gas extraction, just listening to you, whoever came into the conversation as a first-time contact this topic or what we're talking about, will be able to picture what's the extraction process for natural gas. He also spoke about the advantages of natural gas. It's cleaner, it's easier to source, it's more affordable in terms of cost, and it's available. And you also spoke to the disadvantages, the fact that it's highly flammable. So that even makes the extraction process to be high risk, dangerous, which impacts on the cost of extraction as well. It's a pollutant. As we know, natural gas still has some carbon elements in it. So it's a cleaner fuel. It's cleaner than when we talk about the other fossil fuels like coal, crude oil, but it's not as clean as the renewables. So it causes some level of environmental pollution, and it's not replaceable. All those are check marks. You did very well in that topic. I wish you also were able to speak to some laws, but like you mentioned, you're not familiar with the Nigerian regulatory landscape. So it's understood why you weren't able to speak to any of the regulatory landscapes, whether in Nigeria, West Africa, or country. And I'm not sure if Zambia is an oil and gas producing country, but in the future, especially because you have members in your team who are from oil and gas producing countries, it would be good for at least one or two of them to be given the task to make the research to see what the legal regulatory regime is like, so that you can infuse some of that. So fantastic presentation, well done to all. There were some questions that I received. I'm not sure if it's the right time to respond to those questions, probably after the entire session. Let me give way to other mentors.
Yes, after the other mentors.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Nena Ize. We'll call the next mentor, Mr. Etula Adun, to give us his contributions before the last mentor.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. Just kind of fortunate. I'm actually in Bonny Island. I work with Shell, and currently I'm in the facility in the plant, so with coverall. Unfortunately, my desktop doesn't have a video attached. I mean, a camera attached to it, so I won't be able to. You won't be able to see my face, but my picture could have
Okay,
been able
sir.
to be better. I am not allowed to use my individual laptop or system outside the Shell network. So
Okay, sir.
it's a great opportunity to be able to meet with everyone. I think I'm very good connected to Inena Ize on LinkedIn, and sometimes we've been communicating there. So generally, good presentations from the first group that presented on the petroleum industry, generally on the fossil aspect of it and coal. Inina has been able to say a lot concerning the industry and how the presentation has gone. One or two feedback to add to that, I will look at the present realities in terms of the petroleum industry, and also in terms of the energy transition. Very important is the challenges we are facing with the volatility in oil prices, natural gas prices as a result of some geopolitical risk that has been involved with Russia, Ukraine, and the US and the European Union plays. Also with OPEC. And when you discuss the fossil fuel industry, the petroleum industry, particularly with Nigeria, you will not forget to put the role that OPEC plays in the industry, as well as other factors in terms of energy transition. So good presentations. I would like for next time, put in the current realities, what are the recent happenings in the industry relating to the petroleum industry. I'll also, in terms of presentation, I was looking for some visuals, graphics, and have some pie chart, histograms, and some of those things that helped to increase the acceptance of your presentation, to be able to see that we can be able to relate easily. So much wordings on the slides, and very good that you're able to present properly. And so for next time, try to see how your points are in bullets. It's going to help in the presentation, concise, straight to the point. When you do the presentation, so much words, it's visually looking at it. We try to see how we just start to learn to read it. But if you have like a histogram, a pie chart, so when you talk of the upstream, downstream, and then the midstream of the oil and gas, you see some presentations that has to do some with some visuals. Then you give us some statistics also that has to do with the petroleum industry. Good focus on the regulatory angle of the oil and gas. I'm more of operations and production. So INENA is more issues into legal, and you have that. I appreciate the legal aspect. I want to see also in terms of figures when we are talking of oil and gas in terms of production, how many thousand barrels per day Nigeria produces or the world consumes in terms of energy, the emissions in gigajoules. So get the statistics and put together, get the pictures in maybe histogram. That helps us to have that fact easily. So if you look at sources, you will get better data. You can look at the IEA, International Energy Agency, the OPEC has very valuable information. The US Energy Information Administration has global data for the oil and gas industry. And concerning petroleum so far, one challenge we're having is currently in Nigeria, we look at production drop. Recently, Angola has overtaken Nigeria as a major producer in oil and gas, particularly with oil production. So we've seen the effects of oil theft, bunkering that has been able to be affected Nigerian's production. As I'm talking to you, it's like a coded information, but I can't say much. the Bonny Oil and Gas Terminal has not been exporting for a while because TMP is down. We've seen a lot of challenges in terms of community engagement. And those are aspects that have been affecting the Nigerian oil and gas industry. So I appreciate all that have been done concerning the presentation from Group 1, and kudos to Chima and Samtushe and all the members of that group. So key points for me is that good presentation. For next time, pictorial graphics and point out with bullet points. Your points should be bullet points and concise. Try to reduce the wordings because when you're presenting, if you know your materials, you have the bullet points, you speak on them. So there's going to be the notes for that presentation, and also the time consciousness. So for coal industry, we're not doing much about the coal. The regulatory framework is there for Nigeria, and particularly the involvement, it's not as robust as the oil and gas industry. So that's an area, mining operations, that are supposed to be going on very well in terms of the earnings in coal exports in Nigeria. But the way it's going, from my own analysis and what I've perceived so far, I've seen that a lot of work need to be done in terms of the benefits that coal will bring to our economy has to be looked at. The environmental aspect, well talked about in the presentation, great angle in terms of pollution controls. That's very much. One key area we will look at is the flaring aspect of it. Flaring is become a challenge globally because of emissions, the GHG emissions that comes up with flaring. I'm concerned if you check that we used to have the flare monitor online. There is a satellite that monitors flares globally. And if you go on that website and check for the flares that comes from Nigeria, you'll find out that the data that have been there are old. You see that while LNG facilities were built, the current Nigeria is part of the flare reduction program in the oil and gas industry. So that has helped, but Nigeria has a lot of gas, and in terms of power generation, that could help in that transition. I will not speak much about that, but when I start answering my questions, I will have a look at that. So time consciousness in terms of representation also matters. It will be able to allow you to be able to meet up with the focus. Let me go for the gas aspect of it also in terms of global relevance. We understand that the world is being pushed to ensure we are moving to a low carbon economy. And natural gas, over the years, has been thought, oh, it's going to be the bridge of the energy transition, the bridge fuel for us to go to a low carbon economy. And that alone is a big factor for us to get to net zero 2050. Nigeria net zero energy transition plan looks at 2060. And China is talking about 2060 also. So in terms of the natural gas is a key player. And today we'll see what Russia is using as a weapon for Europe because of the natural gas and the reliance on natural gas. So there are energy security risk in terms of natural gas supplies, which is a key factor for economic development and as well as geopolitics. So presenter did a great job. Also, I will also comment about statistics, visualization, and bullet points. Very important, simplified presentation. So we will get, so you talked about the natural gas value. If you talk about natural gas value chain, we want to see from extraction down to export. So you both your midstream, your storage, your LNG, regasification facilities, all of that gets a picture that we'll be able to understand easily without you writing so many pages, and you could be able to explain far better. There are statistics about sub-Saharan Africa and demand for gas, the global demand for gas, and a lot of statistics to be placed pictorially to be able to address these issues. I think that's my concern in terms of the presentation. For in general, a very good one. I'm very, very glad that you guys are able to come up with such knowledge and in-depth analysis within the industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Itula. So I'll call the last mentor for today to give us his contribution, which Mr. Okochukwu Kelly. Mr. Okochukwu Kelly, if you're with us, you can unmute yourself. Okay, I don't think Mr. Okochukwu is with us.
Good evening. I'm with you guys. Good evening. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, network. So I'll not be able to go on video because of where I am because of network. So I'll be quick. I want to thank the organizers, the you call it JIIPCC, right?
Gypsy
So I want to thank the
Mentorship.
JIIPCC for this opportunity. Are you hearing me, please?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, so thank you so much for this opportunity. I also want to thank Barrister for this opportunity. I want to thank the presenters for an excellent job, and also want to thank the mentors for their contribution. So the group one, Olu David, Eleojo, Shima, Victoria, Idoko, Evangeline, Becky Dermo, thank you so much. You did a wonderful job. I also want to thank group two. I think it was Muchimba that did the presentation, right? And also I want to thank other members of the group, Ndigwe, Suchima, Wike, Azomta, and Victoria. You all did very well. I will continue from, because I'm a technical person, like the second mentor. I will just make a few contributions. One thing I wanted to point out basically is bullet points in your presentation. And the second mentor has extensively spoken on that, so I'm not going to dwell on that. You did your research well, and I want to thank you for that. So I'll just make contributions with respect to the industry. I could see that the audience is Africa, right?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
It's an African audience. So,
Yes.
and Nigeria, yeah, and Nigeria having I'm privileged to work with the NNPC. So I have a lot of understanding of the industry, but I'll just say one or two things about the industry. First of all, we play a role not just in our country, we are also now trying to help other countries to set up their, like Liberia and some other countries, their oil and gas business. Now, with respect to renewable energies and us going clean, like the world is proposing, which is a good idea. But I also want to point out that, first of all, as Africans, we look at our interests, what is of benefit to us. In the oil business, there's also the political side. And that's why I said this is an African audience, is as Africans, we must realize that we have a responsibility over our continent. So you guys are the new generation. At the back of your mind, you must realize that we must make strong contribution to make our continent a strong continent and to be able to play big in the global world. And we thank God we have everything it takes to do that. So when the so-called developed countries are advising us, we listen to them, but we listen to them with one eye closed, because in this game, it's about interest. So based on all your presentations that you made and pointing out all those international bodies, I just want to point out some things to you. For example, we're talking about the green gas effect, renewable energy and all that, cutting down on coal and all that because of its effect on the environment, cutting down on fossil fuels. That is beautiful. Was it the first? Yes, it was the first presentation, right? Yes, the first presentation, they talked about the China being a major coal consumers and exporters, China, India, and all that. You may be surprised to know that even now, because of the Russia-Ukraine war I'm making a general contribution if you want to play in the oil and gas industry and all that. I just want to tell you how it works to an extent. Right now, we're in the transition stage. We now is NNPC is now Nigerian Petroleum Company Limited, and we're transitioning, and there are a lot of changes. We have both the renewable energy and the non-renewable energy and all that in our portfolio. NNPC has over 20 companies, and we just declared our profit just yesterday, 674 billion naira. So, which is beautiful. Now, I want to point out one thing. You may be surprised to know that Germany, as we speak, is now trying to ramp up, is now trying to go back to coal production because of the war, the Russian-Ukraine war. They're now using their resources as a weapon. So we know what Russia is doing with respect to restricting gas supply to Eastern Europe and to the whole of Europe. And Germany, France, and some other European countries are now the same people that are telling the world to bring down on their fossil fuel consumption because of survival.
Can't hear you, sir. Are you still with us? Please, can we hear our mentor?
Okay, are you hearing me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, so network challenge from where I am. I'm so sorry about that.
Okay,
So
sir.
I'm just trying to give us the overview and a sense of responsibility of our role, the role we play as Africans, and how we can play big as a continent, as a family, and win big. We are talking about economy. You understand? So the most important thing in all this, yes, the environment is there, but also in your presentation, you must take note of what we stand to gain with the natural resources that God has given us, and also to balance it pari passu with the environment. That's what I'm trying to point out to you. I'm trying to tell you that under the carpet, what matters at the end of the day is trying to get these things cheap so that not to buy it at a huge amount. It's all about economy between countries, between continents and all that. It's all about power and control. So for Africa, we must take advantage of that which we have. Saying that, I'll go straight to the natural gas. The person that presented on natural gas, that is the young lady from Zambia, right? Muchimba. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for the benefits and the disadvantages that you pointed out. But I think that you were stressing much on the disadvantages. It is not as bad as that. However, so I'll tell you that, for example, presently, the European Union has proposed labeling natural gas, Nigerian natural gas, as a green energy source. Why? What's a green energy source? Green energy sources mostly are the renewable energy, the wind, the solar, and all that. Why are they labeling? Why are they wanting to label us as green energy source, which is very good for us? Because of our natural gas is very clean. Nigerian natural gas is one of the best on earth in the whole world. Our sulfur content is very, very minimal. So it's about the sulfur content and all that. So the same thing with our crude. Our crude is sweet crude, one of the best in the world. So the same thing with our coal. Even though we've not been exporting coal for years now, our coal, when compared to the Chinese coal and all that, has a very low sulfur content as compared to others. It's just what God did for Africa. So as we speak, European Union has continued updates as is proposing labeling natural gas as a green energy source. Why? One, it meets almost all the criteria of a renewable energy, even though it's not a renewable energy, even though it's a fossil fuel. What do I mean? You talked about exhausting it. Presently, we have 206.53 trillion cubic feet proven gas reserve in Nigeria. What it means is that we have over 306 years of gas left if we're using it at maximum we will use it for over 306 years and will not still exhausted it. However, the unproven gas reserve, which is the potential, is 600 trillion cubic feet, meaning we'll not be able to exhaust it. You get, which, and the proven gas reserve, the potential revenue that is going to give us is the proven gas reserve, the potential revenue is $853.4 trillion US dollars, if harnessed, if well taken. So with that, I can tell you that moving to natural gas, which is what the federal government is all campaigning for, we have the gas master plan, we have the roadmap, everything we are doing now in NMPC, the major thing we're doing is moving most things, almost everything to gas, because it's cheap, we can source it easily, we have it in our reserve and all that. I'll tell you the challenges and that. So that's where we're moving. We're even working on the vehicles. If our vehicles can start, which we have done some of the this analysis on it, and we have also started using some vehicles already on gas because it's very cheap. The industries that are using diesel, your Bonvita, Milo, Indomie, all those things are expensive because of the AGO. So presently, we're now supplying gas. We're turning all of them to, to be using the natural gas so that to make the items cheaper. So that's some of the advantages. Then we are compliant with the, with the gas emission roadmap globally. You may be surprised to know that the European Union, not European Union, we made €1 million on carbon credits last year. I'll explain that later if we have time for that. I'll explain, which means, sorry, please permit me on this. Please, I'll call you back. I'm in a meeting. Thank you very much. So, sorry about that. So I just want to tell you some of the things in the industry. And with respect to Africa, we are trying to help other African countries in trying to achieve their gas potentials and their oil potentials. For example, there's a project ongoing. The second mentor talked about you doing your research. Now, next time, you all did a good job, but now you have to be up to date with the industry. The materials are everywhere, up to date with the industry and what is happening in the industry and where we're going as a continent. For example, there's an AKK project ongoing, which is going to take the pipeline from the Niger Delta area to the north. And we have a plan to extend it from the north to Chad, and from there to Europe, to meet up with Gazprom, so that we'll be able to penetrate the European market. So summarily, what I'm saying is that us as a continent, us as a nation, as a country, Nigeria, and us as a continent, we have to keep tapping into our resources, what God has given us, to be able to be strong as an economy, to be able to be strong in the global stage. I'll quickly go to the vandalism that is ongoing, that the second speaker, the second mentor talked about, which is a big issue on what we are doing. For example, as at September, OPEC gave us a target of 1.83 million barrels of crude oil per day to supply as our quota. But we've not been meeting up to that because of vandalism, because of community issues and all that. So this period that we have the oil price up to $100 and all that, about that, as at yesterday also, it was about $88. Out to $100, we were supposed to make money and strengthen our economy with the market now, but Nigeria has not been benefiting so much because of the vandalism. We've been doing about 1 million barrels per day. Doing about 1 million barrels per day, meaning we are not meeting our target of extra 830,000 barrels per day. That translates to over $72 million of loss because of vandalism, because of community unrest and all that. So what are we supposed to do? What we're supposed to do is to see how we can mitigate that, which I won't give you the details, which we are already on extensively. So I will stop there. I want to thank this beautiful family for this opportunity. I'm having a very, very busy day, and I'm grateful to God that I'm able to participate. I trust that next time I'll do better as a mentor with respect to other aspects of the meeting. So I want to hand over back to the organizers. I want to thank everybody that participated, our young people that participated. You guys are wonderful. You guys have a very bright future, and we are available to guide you as you go on your journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okochukwu. Your contributions were quite educative and is an eye-opener to us learning about the fossil fuel industry. So we are moving to the picture time. So we advise all our mentees to put up their videos, and our mentors, we are going to take a screenshot of our meeting to enable us post on our social media, tag our mentors, and write what we've learned about today's session. Kindly put on your video, everybody, for 20 seconds. Thank you very much, those that have put up their video. Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Nena.
And Etulon, it's good to finally speak with you here. Hi, Etulon, and thank you so much, Kelly, for those brilliant tips you gave mentees. Listen, and everyone, hello. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm sorry that you guys couldn't see my face. I'm actually on coveralls now.
Let me see if I can make my face. Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you very much, sir.
I also want to thank the first mentor. Thank you so much, ma'am. You did an excellent, excellently. Thank you for your contribution. And also to the second mentor, thank you for your contribution, sir.
Thank you very much. It's nice having all of you too.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll move to the question and answer section now. I'll be sending the questions to the chat box for everybody to see, and I'll ask our mentors questions. So, okay. Okay, the first question is for Mrs. Nena Eze. So the question goes like this: what steps can be taken?
Miss.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Miss. Thank you.
Okay,
yeah.
Miss Nena, thank you for the correction. The question goes like this: what steps can be taken to prevent the continuous financing or building of coal-fired plants by countries like China?
Okay, thank you so much. And I'm really happy that Kelly made those remarks he made in his response to the presentations, which I believe is very important. We are all young people on the call. Just put it in context. We have a population of about 7.9 billion people. Nigeria seems to be topping the lists in sub-Saharan Africa. Egypt coming behind it with Ethiopia. So what does that tell you? Africa, the African population is really exploding. Nigeria is number 7 when it comes to the global population. At least this was as at May 2022 when I checked the population side. And when you have more people, you need to have more resources, otherwise you're going to have issues. There will be conflicts because when people have to compete for scarce resources, there will be conflicts, whether they are people or animals or even plants. You know, in the rainforest, trees grow tall not because they just want to, but because they want to reach above others for sunlight. So energy drives the world. In almost everything you do, you require energy. Our two mentors that spoke previously have highlighted some of those issues. The call we're having now is powered by energy. Human beings are more integrated because the energy sector has made that possible. And for each country, every country is looking out for what works best for it. Energy that is affordable, that is reliable. Every country is looking at it. And that has to also fit into the trilemmas for human existence in terms of energy security, environmental sustainability, and energy equity. So why am I saying this? If we are saying we want China to shut down its coal plants, we don't want China to finance coal plants, an alternative source of energy for Chinese people. China has the highest population in the world, over 8 billion people. If it is not able to provide the basic requirements for life for its population, that's going to be chaotic. It will also interest us to know that China has some of the biggest refineries, refining capacity in the world. It's not just focusing on coal. It is investing aggressively in crude oil refining, crude oil extraction, even for renewable energy. China is investing heavily to grow the renewable energy sector. And at the end of the day, what everybody is looking for, what every country is focusing on, is affordable energy that will drive the growth of its people. And that connects to what Kelly was speaking to earlier. As Africans, we should begin to think along those lines. Some of us may want to move to other developed countries because we believe that life seems to be more comfortable there, because energy has made that possible for them. A lot of the clothes we are wearing on this call are probably imported or manufactured in other countries because they have the factories to make that possible. So I would say that rather than thinking of how we can prevent the continuous financing of coal power plants in countries including China, we should be focused on how we can get more affordable energy for the human population. Currently, there's an energy crisis in the world. The recently elected government of the United Kingdom is currently stressed because the economics are not looking good. It's looking like the winter might be very challenging. Kelly and Etulan also spoke to what some of our European brothers might be doing as the winter is coming up and Russian gas may not be available to help provide reliable energy for the population. So each jurisdiction really will need to look at what works best for its people. And that's why in Nigeria, just bringing the message back home, and even in Africa, because I'm aware that there are some non-Nigerians on the call. Muchimba, your country, for example, Zambia, has been generating power with hydro energy and solar energy for a long time because that is what works best for it. In the absence of mineral resources, in the absence of fossil fuel or other forms of energy, it has been able to tap into solar, it has been able to tap into hydro to power its population. Rwanda is another country that is doing its best harnessing gas from Lake Kivu. Lake Kivu is just bordering Rwanda and the DRC. And they harness gas from there and take some gas from some other neighboring countries to power the country. And I believe that's what every region should be focused on. United States, as we know, prior to the Biden administration was focused on what energy transition journey would work best for its people. So the US is a high producer of oil and gas, is also a high consumer of oil and gas, and is bringing the renewable energies into the mix to see how we can also help preserve its environment, because we know 10 times, at least in the last 10 years or thereabout, it has been a victim of this whole climate change issue. Recently, we also heard of Florida being flooded and all of that. So the focus, in summary, should be how we can get a reliable, affordable energy to the people in every jurisdiction. Such energy should be available. Such energy should ensure energy security and should also protect the environment while ensuring that there's energy equity. You know, you don't starve people of energy in one part in order to service others. Otherwise, we'll keep having the migration imbalance that we're experiencing now. Many people from Africa are moving into Europe. And when you just check the landmass, you see how tiny Europe is in terms of the areas that people are migrating to compared to the large landmass in Africa that people want to vacate, because the conditions here do not seem to be favorable for the human population to continue to exist. So even in terms of the projects that Kelly mentioned earlier, in selling gas to Europe, we need to be mindful of the experience we had with crude oil, the experience we had with coal when we're producing coal, and other raw materials that we have produced, cocoa inclusive. You send cocoa to France, they give you chocolate in return, and you cannot even access it unless you're able to walk into a supermarket and buy chocolates. So we need to be mindful to ensure that we have sufficient resources to provide for our human population at home, and also export some of that to earn the kind of foreign exchange we need to drive other developments in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma, for that answer. So the next question is from Mr. Etula Adu. Is there any possibility of full dependence on renewable source of energy in Nigeria? That's the question.
All right. Yeah, and thanks, Nena, for the first question answering. And I think I just want to add up to that in terms of, you know, when we want to see how we can lay our hands off coal, but China as a whole is the world largest consumer for coal. And in terms of leadership in generation for solar and renewable energy, I think in 2013, China came up with the Clean Air Act, just like what the US is doing and the Biden administration is doing. So because of the air quality, the government of China is trying to see how both regional governments are able to enforce an Air Quality Act, the Air Quality Act, which was stipulated in 2013, to be able to reduce much dependency on coal. But I think recently, because of the challenges we have with gas demand and supply, there's a switch kind of to coal back. But one way that China can be able to fight that, both in financing and in terms of preventing for more coal-fired plants, is what we call coal to gas switch. So switching to gas power generation for electricity, it will help that in urban development, and during the winter season, industrial boilers, and as well as both for home heating. It's one of the major sources in urban China that demands electricity. So more of coal goes there. We want reliable electricity supply, and coal has been cheap to make that possible. So a potential for that to be prevented is focus on gas switch. But with the current prices in natural gas, LNG prices that are going up as a result of the energy crisis, we discovered that even in Germany today, and even in France, there have been calls for switching back to coal for just to survive the winter. Then they can now talk about the energy transition. So there are a lot of challenges. There's what we call the emissions trading schemes that will help in the, what happens is that you have a price for the emissions, the carbon emissions that you emit during the production of energy, maybe from non-renewable sources. So you pay more if you produce dirty fuel. So that can deter emissions-intensive industries or countries to be able to focus on renewable sources. So those are some additions I will add. So in terms of question 2, is there any possibility of full dependence on renewable sources of energy in Nigeria? Generally, we've said this before, that we want to, and I think Kelly said it that was the last mentor, concerning looking at our own peculiarity. Even in I just said it also, that for energy consumption and supply, every country is dynamic. We normally say this, that we are seeking for a just transition. It's not possible for now, on my own perspective and what I've assessed so far, for Nigeria or Africa general to rely fully on renewables because of our peculiarities. The developed nations have moved and harnessed the opportunity for fossil fuels, and they've grown to an extent where they are trying to mix in the energy mix, bring in the percentage of renewables higher than fossils. But you could see the challenge with the intermittency of renewable energy when it comes to reliable and accessible cheap supply of energy. Because we need energy to survive. We need energy for economic growth. We need energy for industries. We need energy for everything we do. So if energy is not cheap, if it's not sustainable, if it's not affordable, then how do we want to switch to that? So if we look at Europe, Germany, France, and all of that, focus on, there's offshore wind in the North Sea of UK, and wind doesn't blow every time. It's intermittent. If you want to look at solar, so at night, what will happen? So there are technological challenges in terms of energy storage, where we don't have that capacity and technology currently to be able to leapfrog from fossil fuels to renewable. And if you are online with LinkedIn, you will see the likes of Aia of the African Energy Chamber pushing forward that we need a just transition. The current energy transition plan that the Buhari administration has been able to put forward seeks to say, even the Minister of Petroleum have been saying that we need to take justice of our gas resources. Kelly made a mention that we have up to 200 if not more than 200 billion cubic feet of trillion cubic feet of natural gas and reserves, and also for potentials about 600 cubic feet. We need gas for survival. We for electricity generation in Nigeria, we've not utilized even the gas resources to generate power. We have intermittent supply in urban developments. So it's a challenge for us to say that we want to leapfrog. So we are of the opinion, I'm part of those that actually put forward to say gas for Africa stands to be the bridge for the energy transition. So we want to use gas for our development and our power generation. We want to use it for our economic, for our industries. We want to use it for cooking. Now, in terms of rural, when we want to look at renewable energy, we want to see that decentralized mini grids can be used in terms of renewable energy to help energy access in Nigeria and also be in sub-Saharan Africa. We know that energy, I have some key figures that the electricity access rate in sub-Saharan Africa has grown from 33% in 2010 to sometimes 46+% in 2019. Yet, we have about 570 million people that remain without access. Nigerian population by 2050 will be, Africa generally will be up to 2 billion people in 2050. So how do you want to power progress? How do you want to power these people? I mean, if energy is not reliable, so we are looking at energy security. So we'll also look at what is available to us. Europe is facing a huge challenge because the mantra for renewables came up, and Germany had to stop the nuclear facilities. France had to stop some of their nuclear facilities, and they were all relying on Russian gas. the stop fracking in domestic supplies for UK and all of that. So look, when you look peculiar, if you look at your condition as a country, then you need to understand that people will need cheap access to electricity. Now, the environmental aspect comes into play where we need to look at low carbon emissions. We need to go to net zero by 2050. And how do we pivot to that? We, over time, gradually increase the share of renewable in our energy mix while utilizing our existing resources. So per se, for focus, we have what we call the Rural Electrification Agency in Nigeria that focuses in building mini grids and supports for the development of renewable energy in Nigeria. So maybe hospitals in rural areas, schools can be supported with solar power, mini grids. And that is what the government is also doing. So for me, we won't be able to move now. Over time, in the future, we will. Now, the myriad of issues to accelerate the energy transition, which has gained traction lately, include one, energy poverty, energy security, energy sovereignty, and the geopolitical interests of different countries. And one big aspect we're looking at is climate change. And what happened with the pandemic? The COVID-19 pandemic made us to understand. We were shouting, oh, yes, we no longer need fossil fuel. 2019, 2020, we were happy that, oh, the prices of oil were down. And suddenly global demand starts coming up for energy. And we started seeing rocket prices, hikes in fossil fuels and all of that. And one key aspect that will make renewable energy very, very important and also relevant to us is energy storage. And some of these technologies are not scalable yet, and they are quite expensive to be able to meet up. So if California has been having several outages, even I think that happened last winter or so, whereby the governor of California had intended that California no longer gets its energy mix more from fossil fuels. They started having wind outages and all of that. And there were power cuts all over. We are experiencing that. And we can't say we want to stand by renewables alone. So for me, now it's not possible. For sure, it is possible. And that can be achieved through economic and infrastructural buildings. So if we actually are going to leave fossil fuel or gas at its own, then it's going to be a challenge to us because we will lose jobs, like their livelihoods that are going to be lost. We will have stranded assets. I mean, just imagine that, okay, Nigeria says we no longer want to get involved in gas production. Europe today, Germany is going, the Prime Minister of Germany went to Qatar for gas deals. I mean, they are crying for LNG, saying, oh, please, Europe, Germany and France and all of that recently have agreed to build floating LNGs, we'll call them FSRU, which is regasification units in Germany, in Europe, so that they can be able to get gas from every source besides Russian gas to be able to survive. We have been talking on LinkedIn how Europe is going to survive this winter. So the renewables couldn't demonstrate to us that reliable power, reliable electricity, energy access for all can be granted. Key thing is that in Nigeria, we still have a lot of energy poverty and energy access. Gas is going to be used to be able to meet up with access to cheap, reliable energy. We'll make sure that operations within the oil and gas industry is low carbon intensive through the use of the flaring monetization programs and also carbon capture and sequestration processes that can be able to help us to say, yes, we no longer need fossil fuels. But for now, that is not going to be possible when we look at our present conditions and our present case. So policy-wise, I mean, there are changes that the government is doing, and I'm very happy that the energy transition plan is in place. And there are a lot of benefits in terms of renewable energy when you look into rural Africa and the suburban areas. It's going to help. So, well, for renewable energy, will it play a crucial role in Africa? Yes, it will. It will play a critical role in Africa through bridging the energy access gap. I mean, we have that's a big socioeconomic problem, and human development content-wise, continent-wide, it's going to help improve that. So is renewable solar, it's affordable now because solar panels have been cheap now, cheaper than before. So, I mean, most people could just have a solar lamp. MTN has this kind of solar power for lighting homes where you just plug and pay some thousands of, just 1,000 or 2,000 naira every month or so, then you have your house lighted. So that can be beneficial for rural livelihoods, I mean, which is very important. So for me, generally, there is the magnitude of tax in most sub-Saharan Africa, which is, if we look at it as at 2019, the electrification rate is like 46%. So, and we have about 906 million people that still lack access to clean cooking fuels and technologies. So what will help us in that? Do we want to focus on biomass? I mean, so these are challenges that we will be facing in terms of if we want to fully depend on renewable as at now. I think do I still have some time, or how many minutes do I have there?
Please, sir, that's all, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that answer, sir. So we quickly ask the last question to our last mentor, then also ask the mentees to raise their hands if they have any questions before we end the program. So the last question for Mr. Ugochukwu is nuclear energy to a certain degree not safer than other forms of renewable energy?
Okay, thank you for the question. Nuclear energy is I want to compare it to nuclear energy compared to renewable energy compared to fossil fuel. Among the three, the dirtiest is fossil fuel. And renewable energy is as clean. Nuclear energy is as clean as renewable energy. So they are both very good clean energies compared to fossil fuel. So I think I will just stop at that. But I don't compare it to, because the question had nothing to do with nuclear and fossil. So I would have done some comparison. However, nuclear energy is a clean energy, renewable energy is a clean energy. But the question about nuclear energy is, for us as a continent, how many countries in Africa, if at all any, is a nuclear power? So we shouldn't be talking about that. We should be looking at the renewable energy as against fossil fuel. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, sir. So for the mentees, if you have any questions, you can kindly raise up your hand and I'll call you to ask our mentors. And I still have a question for Mr. Okochukwu. Okay, Atta or Noja, you can ask your question.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Elojo Ataonoja, and I am a member of Group 1. So throughout the entire session, it has been an enlightening one. However, I have a question. We've been on fossil fuels and its adverse effects on the environment, the good parts, the bad parts, but I There's also fuel wood, like most people make use of firewood, and it also causes global warming. I mean, and some people are not even aware. Some people are not aware of this. Like some people that make use of fuel wood and into as a energy generator, and when they are carrying out their household activities. So, like, how exactly can we make sure, or at least to curb the use of fuel woods to the barest minimum? Because aside fossil fuels, fuel wood also has this similar effect on the environment. So how can we like reduce that effect it has to the barest minimum?
Okay, Mr. Kuchuku, you can answer the
Okay,
question.
I should answer. Okay, I'm
Yes.
trying to get the, how can we, you're talking about fuel wood or something?
That's
Yes.
biomass. Or something.
Okay, how we can curb the effect of fossil fuel on the environment, right?
So like firewood, I think she's speaking to people who use firewood and how we can cut back on that to protect the environment. Am I correct, Joy?
Okay.
Joy, was I correct in rephrasing your question? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, that's exactly my point. Firewood, that's what I'm talking about. People that make use of firewood as their own source of energy, mostly when it comes to cooking and all. I mean, when we go to our villages, some of us actually still use.
I think I got where you're saying.
So, and it also has same effect on the environment. So I'm asking, like, what exactly can we do to like reduce the use of this fuel wood or firewood to the barest minimum? Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Nena, for explanation on that. The second speaker, please, can you pick on it?
Okay.
I think you want to say something. Yes.
All right. So I think generally even the UN and there are a lot of debts, millions of debts in terms of wood. Like it talks about biomass generally using it for cooking. I think that's what United Nations and the World Bank is actually looking at, saying it's a problem for energy access and energy poverty we're having now. And how can that be done? So it's an area where gas is, cooking gas, LPG, it's been need to be improved on for rural access. I think the government is also trying to come up with programs in terms of that. So generally, rural communities, people in the villages, I mean, they don't have any source of use to cook besides wood, and deforestation, all those contributory factors in place in terms of that. And over time, indoor, they use it, and there are a lot of deaths in terms of air pollution relating to that. So how can that be solved? It's one of the ways to do that is, I mean, through gas, access to gas and cooking gas, LPG. Though currently the prices of gas in Nigeria, it's LPG, it's very high, and because of the global gas prices. But if over time we can be able to harness our resources, the gas resources, and be able to provide this cheap, then they can be able to have cheap access to it. Besides that, if you want to say you want to use renewable for cooking, there are a lot of demand, and the energy demand for all the energy intensity that's going to be used to be able to provide the kind of heating and cooking for food and all of that is high. I don't think just only solar, you can just use that alone to be able to cook. But if there are decentralized mini grids within the local communities, it could help. It could help to be able to do that. So if per se, for local government programs, we're able to have some decentralized mini grids from solar that can be able to power some electrical stoves, that can actually help. But know that the energy demand for using renewable to be able to cook is going to be high. So that was why people both in urban areas wouldn't say they are using their solar panels to be able to use it for electrical for cooking. So we all resort to gas cookers and also electricity. So if we have electricity access all to rural communities, then we can be able to have electric cookers also. Then that will help in reducing the use of biomass or wood for cooking. That's my opinion. And it will be difficult to say they wouldn't be able to use wood for cooking if these programs are not implemented. So let me just add before I go off. There's also some modern approaches that have been done by some innovators where we have some enclosed wood stoves. So what happens is that you have this kind of enclosed stove that you have these wood pellets in them, and it's cooked. So the combustion for the wood is actually perfect to be able to see that you don't have so much emissions in those stoves. So there are modern wood stoves for rural areas. So if you Google and check online, you'll see some innovators that came up with some biomass stoves that will help not to increase the pollution within these areas if we are not moving towards the gas and electricity aspect and renewables aspect for the supply for that.
Thank you so much, brother. I just done justice to it. That's the best way we can for now. I will just add a little of just in addition to what he said, because the cheaper, the best alternative for now is gas. However, how can we take it across every village and all that? So, but in addition to what the excellent contribution he made, I would just say this. Emissions from wood smoke is not quite good for health. Yes, you're right. It can cause things like cough, asthma attacks, heart attacks, lung disease, even lung cancer and all that. So it's not quite good. So I would advise those that use it, so at least this is just a mere advice, direction of the wind, when you are using it, if you look at the direction of the wind, don't just face it and you are inhaling it. It's not good for your health. So look at the direction of the wind and be on the other side. Use a more aerated environment. Don't use firewood in an enclosure. So use a more aerated environment for health purposes. So I think that's what I can chip in, because it's not quite good for health. But also in the long run, what we are trying to do for this part for Nigeria is still the gas listing. So we're trying to, for example, now the AKK, for example, now, once we get that running, we are working on it as we speak. It's a $2.2 billion pipeline project, the biggest pipeline project in West Africa. Once we are done with it, it's going to, the moribund companies in the northern part of the northern axis, because it's cutting through Ajokuta, Kaduna, Kano. The textile industries, all those industries will come alive again, and that will aid employment. And people in those rural areas will now be able to have a job and have more source of livelihood. I think that will also improve their standard of living, which can give them access to be able to afford gas alternatives in those axes. So I don't know what to say. All I can tell you is that you are right, it's not quite good for health. So any alternative you can adopt, please adopt. The gas alternative, if you can afford it. If you cannot afford it for now, use it in an aerated environment. Don't use it in an enclosure, and look at the direction of the wind so that you don't just face it and you're taking it in and taking it in. When you're taking all the smoke in, you're taking poison in. Thank you very much.
And thank you, gentlemen. If I could also just chip in the points. Thank you, Etulan and Kelly, for your contributions. So, Joy, because of the peculiarities of our environment, because we know that even the persons who are currently using cooking gas may complain as to the price. Etulan rightly mentioned the electrical option. I mean, there are some places where if you have reliable power, you wouldn't even have any business with buying a gas cylinder or purchasing gas, because you can just use an electric stove to cook round the clock. So in the villages where these are not available, aside from the health challenges that come with using firewood to cook, it also contributes to environmental degradation. I mean, deforestation, a lot of our forests are gone because the trees have now been used to cook. So considering the resources we have, one could just begin to think out of the box to see what is the quickest and shortest solution to protecting our environment, protecting our trees, protecting the health of our people. Could coal be an easier, faster means for generating cooking fuel in the short term until we have gas accessible to everyone in our rural society, until we have electricity available to everyone? So how well are we using our coal? Because coal also cooks very fast. It's cleaner compared to firewood in terms of the level of emissions that come out of it and how much impact it will have on the environment, on people's health, and even the natural resources. So I just thought to keep that in from a practical perspective, that although we are saying we do not want to encourage use of fossil fuels, coal, and all of that, if we can harness the coal we have better, get them more accessible to the hinterlands, make them more affordable, even if it's as a short-term measure to providing cleaner for our people until we are able to get gas, electricity, and other cleaner sources of energy to them. I think that's worth exploring. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nena, Mr. Ogochukwu, and Mr. Etula. So the final question for today, it will also be asked to all our mentors, so you can just put in your contributions, is in what way can Nigeria salvage her fossil fuel industry despite the unending clamor for renewable energy towards the total abandonment of fossil fuel? So Ms. Nena can go first.
Thank you. That's the $1 million question now. Our previous speakers had mentioned that we might have missed out greatly on the recent boom in oil prices because of some of the challenges we're experiencing in the country, in the industry. So for a while, we had the petroleum industry. Now it has been enacted, so we have a clear legal and regulatory regime. But aside from that, the operational issues, crude oil theft has been a major challenge that is preventing us from producing and evacuating optimally. So security of our infrastructure to ensure that we are able to produce optimally and export optimally to earn the maximum income we can from our products, very important. We also need to enhance our extraction processes, use more recent technological means to produce to the limits. We have in a couple of aging infrastructure. As we speak now, some of the infrastructure for crude oil evacuation are not available due to the age and the fact that they have broken down. Some of them are not functioning at maximum capacity. So we need to invest in equipment overhaul to ensure that our infrastructure are up to date and able to extract and evacuate maximum quantum of production to both the local and global markets. We also need to ensure that we provide fuel for our people. It's almost mind-boggling that we are producing so much and importing so much. When we check the economics, it's almost unbelievable. The NNPC did an analysis when it announced recently the amount of money it had spent on subsidizing PMS for local consumption. It's just it's not something that we should continue to do. So we have to improve on our refining capacity. Dangote refinery is currently being worked on. We hope that will come on stream, hopefully sometime next year. in the near future. The federal government is also a co-owner of that. And we are hopeful that once the refinery comes on stream, that would help to reduce our importation of refined products. We also need to the existing refineries we have in other parts of the country. The refinery, Port Harcourt, Kaduna refineries. I recall that the GMD of NNPC mentioned this in his recent teleconference, his recent press conference. We also need to encourage modular refineries, and for that it's a little bit tricky, because if you have modular refineries, you also need to guarantee the feedstock of crude oil to ensure that they have the stock to refine. What will be the currency, what will be the terms for payments, what are the economics, commercial terms that are good for all parties in the transaction and attractive to make people invest in that. We also have to, as a matter of fact, ensure that we have a workforce well equipped in terms of knowledge. So we are speaking renewable now. How can we produce more sustainably, in a manner that is environmentally friendly? And gas flaring comes to mind immediately. We see that there is a huge drive now to drive down gas flaring and convert this money that we've been wanting into money in the pockets for both investors, the country, and all stakeholders. So that is something that we also need to do. And on the backdrop of all this, we need to pay attention to renewable energy. So when we talked about the PIA, and there's a provision in the PIA that talks about saving money for future exploration activities to discover more crude oil, maybe we should talk about a revision of that provision to use part of the money being saved to invest in renewable energy, so that we move at the same pace as the world and not be backward. So yes, we use the energy we have. We also have to grow the capacity so that when these non-replaceable fuels that we are using eventually exhausted, or as they are being exhausted, we have other energy sources to fall back on, and we will not start to learn, later in the day. So I believe that recently there was a recent acquisition of one of the renewable energy companies in Nigeria by one of the majors, which was highly applauded by all industry stakeholders. And I'm aware that in northern parts of the country, you have investors in solar, in wind energy. In the southern parts of the country as well, there is a lot of investments in gas. We need to look beyond gas as well. There are some modular solar power investors in the southern parts of the country. We need to grow that beyond solar, to look at wind, to look at hydro, to look at biomass and other renewable energy sources that we can use to take power, especially to our folks in the hinterlands. So it's a healthy mix at the end of the day. We need to make use of our fossil fuels, of our renewable energy sources, and other attractive energy sources that we can harness to ensure that, there's a huge deficit when we look at the number of people who do not have access to reliable energy in Nigeria. So there's still a huge gap to fill, and we should plug into all the relevant avenues that are available to ensure that we fill all those gaps. So I'll stop here and give other speakers an opportunity to also speak to the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. Mr. Etula can go next. Thank you very much.
Okay, Ms. Inene said a lot generally. In terms of what way can Nigeria salvage her fossil fuel industry despite the unending clamor for renewable energy towards the total abandonment of fossil fuels? Okay, so challenges have been said concerning what the industry is facing in Nigeria and the way forward. One of the things that actually comes into mind is that carbon intensity in oil and gas operations in Nigeria. And despite the fact that crude oil and gas is less of sulfur and then termed sweet oil and also very clean gas, in emissions aspect of it, oil is, in terms of carbon intensity, being characterized as one of dirty, as a dirty oil coming from Nigeria. You know, the Europeans paint that picture. And I think that was last year or so, the Shell board met in England, and the Church of England Pensions Fund, which is one of the major shareholders in Shell, and because of reputational issues, have been advising for the divestment of assets in Nigeria. We have the competition to look at how, as oil and gas industry in Nigeria, can be able to compete. A good example I normally have to say is how Norway has been able to use our energy resources over the decades to build a very strong sovereign wealth fund. Norway's sovereign wealth fund is estimated to be almost $1 trillion over the years. And if you compare that to Nigeria's excess crude account and our sovereign wealth fund, you find out that ours depleted down below $10 million and or so. If I'm not mistaken, it's even less than $7 million. So how do we try to optimize or use the potentials of gas and oil to be able to diversify our economy, to be able to reduce flaring? So Nigerian gas is seen as, real close to renewable, and to be able to say, okay, Europe needs this gas. Now, in the UK, and the masses are clobbering and saying that you are importing gas to the UK and want to use it for power generation. How clean is their operations? So countries in the developed world want to see that where oil and gas operation takes place, they are not flaring, they are not polluting the environment. So one challenge how Nigeria can be able to help salvage the fossil fuel industry is that we have to reduce flaring. We have to reduce flaring, see the importance of how we can be able to involve carbon capture. I know it's an expensive means. How do we want to utilize our gas? We can utilize our natural gas in hydrogen. Hydrogen is becoming a thing in the industry today. I think most of the IOCs and the developed world is looking at that is going to be part of a solution to net zero, whereby intensive industry, trucking, logistics, aviation that requires highly energy intensive industries will be able to use that. So we have blue hydrogen that is being converted from natural gas. And we can tap into that to be able to use our natural gas to produce hydrogen that can be used in Europe, in China, and every part of the world. So those are key areas that we need to do. And Nigeria needs to see how we can incentivize investors into the oil and gas industry. We need to see that the talks of vandalism, the talks of infrastructure needs to be looked at, so that our economic system is going to be appealing to investors. And the PIA gave a clear path for investors to be rest assured that our fiscal regime is working progressively. So kudos to the PIA is giving investors, foreign investors, to be able to be rest assured that yes, our fiscal policies are in line with global standards. So those are areas that we can be able to see how we can salvage. Then I talked about the modular refineries. And one thing Kelly, I don't know how it will help us, is that there was once we had modular refineries built, and people access to crude oil and gas has become a problem. There was about 3 or 4 months ago on LinkedIn, there was one investor clamoring that they finished building modular refinery and waiting agreements with NNPC to be able to supply crude oil. and they were not having that. So government needs to look to it that investors are not going to be stranded after building these modular refineries, and they don't have access to crude oil, they don't have access to gas. And that's an area that needs to be looked at. And that also comes to our GenCos and then the power generation and electricity distribution network. Access to gas is very important to see that we have uninterrupted power supply. We need to improve our national grid so that we can be able to harness the potential for gas. Domestic demand is very high. If just providing domestic demand alone generates a lot of revenue for the government before we even start talking about exporting LNG and all of that. Now that Europe is in need of natural gas, improve and try to see how we can be able to have investments in building new LNG facilities. Good, Train 7 is being expanded. There's also the call now for the Brass LNG. So many projects, the Morocco and the Nigerian to Morocco, as well as the offshore gas line that will go through Algeria. So many projects are on. And if these things come to play, then we can say that renewable clamor for us to end fossil fuel, we can still survive. We can still survive to when we could say, we no longer need them. I think that's what I could add up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Itula. So, Mr. Ogochukwu can take the floor now to make the final contribution.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you to Mr. Itula. Thank you to Ms. Nena for your contributions. I'll just add just one or two things. We know there are clamor for renewable energy all over the world. However, the demand for fossil fuel all over the world is still high. Same people that are clamoring for it are still clamoring for renewable energy, are still demanding fossil fuel. So, and also in the COP26 meeting I was at last year, that is the climate change meeting. I'm very happy to say that the African leaders walked out of the meeting. And I'll tell you why, because of the proposal they were making to us. Those proposals, in a nutshell, is to keep us poor. And thank God we didn't accept that. So, yes, firstly, most companies, like NNPC, for example, is no longer an oil and gas company, it's not an energy company. So we are, same thing with Total Energy, and most of the oil and gas companies are now becoming, and they're now moving from oil and gas to energy companies. That is, they are saying, we all are saying, we're not just in oil and gas, we're now in the full energy spectrum, including the renewable energy. What have we done with respect to the area of renewable energy? With respect to the area of renewable energy, we didn't keep quiet. We're not quiet, we're working on it. For example, we are investing more on the biofuel area, the production of ethanol. Ogun State has the largest ethanol capacity in Nigeria at the moment. We signed an MOU with Kebbi State and all that, so to be used as biofuels. So we have a strong renewable energy department in this new NNPC, and a lot of funding is ongoing there. However, we still know that in the nearest future, fossil fuel is still important, it's still of demand. So we are not slowing on that. And that's why, since, because of the clamor, that's why we're now putting our emphasis and energy on gas, because gas, to an extent, is clean. You may be surprised to know that, I'll give you an example, our largest market presently, if I use 2021 data, is India. India took 15.2% of our exports, followed by Spain. Spain is in Europe. So yes, although they're clamoring for renewable energy and all that, for us to cut down fossil fuel, but they are also demanding it. And this present war is also causing the demand to be higher. So we will keep working on our fossil fuel, we'll keep improving on it. We got, I talked about carbon credit, that is, it's an incentive that gives you get credit when you reduce on your carbon emission. So when you cut down on your carbon emission, you get carbon credits for that. And another company can decide to buy your credits. And we got carbon credit through Total Energy in a partnership with Total Energy last year, that at the end of the day, Total Energy was able to sell it on our behalf for 1 million euro, which shows that we are cutting down on our carbon emission with respect to the gas business. So we'll keep working we'll keep our focus as a continent is for us our economy to be stronger, for us to do better. We have responsibility in Africa so that we don't become the push dogs of the world. So we'll keep harnessing that which God has given us. I'll keep researching on the renewable energy, keep investing on it, and it's a transition. It will take time, but we're on it. But research that was done has shown that, you'll be surprised to know that from now to the next 50 years, data that there will still be need to an extent for fossil fuels. So whenever there's need, we want to be there available to cash in on it. But now we are investing on renewable energy. Thank you very much, so that we're not left behind. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okuchukwu, Mr. Betula, and Ms. Nena Eze for mentoring us today and teaching us a lot. Thank you all to our mentors too for their beautiful presentations and group work. So we'll call Ms. Juliana to give our final remarks before we end the meeting.
Thank you, everyone, for today. Thank you for making today a success. And I want to say a very big thank you to our mentors. Thank you for coming, and thank you for staying this long and sharing to make sure that we all learn and understand this topic. Thank you so much for everything that you've done for us. We are so grateful. And to all the mentees, we also want to say a very big thank you. Thank you for researching. Thank you for coming together, and also thank you for presenting beautifully. The mentors have done an amazing work on this topic, and we have understood the topic based on the way they've been able to elaborate on the topic of today. What we encourage every mentee to do is to make sure that you use your screenshot, write what you learned on LinkedIn and tag them so that they know that what they did today was actually of value to you and that you learned from it. With that, we'll be rounding up for today. I want to say a very big thank you to Hussein. Thank you for moderating this session today. Thank you, everyone. Once again, we actually stretched past the time, but we're grateful that we did that because we've actually learned a lot. Thank you so much to our mentors. We're so grateful. Thank you so much. Have an amazing night's rest, everyone. Take care.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you, my co-mentors and all participants. Bye.
So much, Ms. Nena. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kelly.
Juliana.
Thank you. Hi, Tula. Thank you.